But our next speaker, Ms. Jessica Bernhardt, will provide an overview of the background and vision for the modernization of the ESG NextGen and an overview of the modernization effort, impact to industry, timeline and scope for release 1 and 2, as well as the overall product roadmap. Ms. Bernhardt works in the Division of Application Services in FDA's Office of Information Management and Technology and is the Program Manager for the ESG and Admin Apps programs at FDA. And then joining us for the Q&A session afterwards will be Bin Dwan, who is an ESG NextGen lead architect at CTO Precise Software Solutions and an FDA contractor, also within the Division of Application Services. Welcome, Jessica.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm very happy to be here with you all in person. Last year, we presented the Electronic Submission Gateway, so I'm excited to share the next generation of the Electronic Submission Gateway. Just out of curiosity, how many of you are familiar with the Electronic Submission Gateway, the ESG? Okay, great. So today I plan on covering what is ESG NextGen, the ESG NextGen background and vision, the industry engagement and collaboration. We're going to provide a little sneak peek demo for you all of ESG NextGen, and then we'll cover the key takeaways and have a Q&A session. So what is ESG NextGen? So ESG NextGen is the replacement of the current ESG, which we now are referring to as legacy ESG. So the Electronic Submission Gateway is the solution for accepting electronic submissions, and it enables the secure submission of pre-market and post-market regulatory information for review. The FDA ESG NextGen will be the central transmission point for sending information electronically to the FDA. So how will the ESG NextGen submission process work? So if you're familiar with legacy ESG, most of you are probably submitting through WebTrader. We probably have a few AS2 submission users, but if you are a WebTrader submission user, you will now submit through a modernized unified submission portal. I think you heard during the last session that the current legacy ESG has some challenges with the ease of submissions, so I think you'll find that the ESG Next Generation is a lot more user-friendly. So after the one-time registration, a user authenticates using multi-factor authentication. This is an enterprise solution for multi-factor authentication. So eventually, if you are using other FDA-wide products, you may be able to just have a one-time login in the future. So then you would upload your submission package through the Unified Submission Portal, which is, again, the replacement of WebTrader, and that submits to the FDA. The ESG NextGen receives the submission and it assigns a unique ID. The FDA ESG NextGen then sends receipt to the submitter upon successful submission. If for some reason your submission was not successful, you would receive a notification of that. The submission is then automatically transferred to the center's inbox that you're submitting through, which is decided based on the submission type selection and the center submission. A center acknowledgement is then automatically generated and sent to the submitter via the FDA ESG Next Generation. The center then validates and processes the submission by accessing their center inbox, and then submission history and status is available in the USP. So it's a really nice feature that within the Unified Submission Portal, you're able to view the status of historical submissions. So for the submission, for FDA submissions and our international partner submissions, Health Canada, CBER, CDER, CIFSAN, CDRH, CTP, CVM, Health Canada, Office of the Commissioner, and ORA all receive submissions through the Electronic Submission Gateway. So the background and vision for the ESG NextGen. So the FDA works with PDUFA and BSUFA to make industry commitments. And as part of that, the FDA is committed to modernizing the architecture, the data submission bandwidth, as well as implementing an identity and access management solution. So that is where the idea came from for the ESG NextGen. So for the vision, protecting proprietary data is very important to the FDA. So as part of that, we are implementing multi-factor authentication and zero trust. Cybersecurity is imperative to the FDA in protecting your data. So the multi-factor authentication and zero trust is really important. Usability from as you heard, there's some challenges with legacy ESG for usability. So the modernized user interface will be very user-friendly, make the submission process very smooth for industry partners. We're also going to increase the the file submission size up to 1 terabyte in release 1. Release 2 will be able to receive submissions larger than 1 terabyte. And then we'll also provide an improved user tracking status, so that way you can log into the unified submission portal and view your submission tracking status. Additionally, scalability and availability is very important. During COVID, we received a large influx of submissions that we didn't usually receive. So it was a process to be able to scale up. With the unified submission portal being cloud-based, we can easily scale up to handle any kind of public health emergency and further protect the public health. So improving user experience. So as you heard before, there's obviously some challenges. The legacy ESG is over 15 years old, and while it has served us well, obviously technology has significantly changed over the last 15 years. So our goal is to improve the user experience. So we've taken the feedback from both industry as well as the centers into consideration as we've worked to modernize. Our future state is going to improve the user account management. So it's going to make it a lot easier to create your user account. The workflow will be a lot more user-friendly as well. We'll have the identity and access management solution. For package preparation, you'll be able to submit your package through an easy step-by-step process through the unified submission portal. We're also going to maintain the current AS2 submission process, and then we'll also provide the ability to submit through API as well. For file submission, we are replacing the digital signature with e-signature. Again, we're increasing the file size capabilities up to 1 terabyte as part of release 1, and then release 2 we'll be able to have larger file submissions over 1 terabyte. And then for communication, our MVP release 1 and 2 will have one-way communication, but our future state, our goal is to eventually provide intelligent chatbot as well as two-way communication. All right, so that brings us to our first challenge question. In what way is ESG NextGen improving customer experience? User interface, B, improved usability, C, provide submission status transparency, D, all of the above. Give you 1 second to think about that. And if you selected D, all of the above, you are correct. So we will be improving customer experience by modernizing the user interface, improving the usability, and then we'll provide submission status transparency so you can view the historical submission status. Seems we are having a little bit of technical challenges. All right, so even though I don't have the slides, I can still go over. So we are going to increase the ability, the submission methods. So we are going to have, like we've had in Legacy, the ability to submit through, instead of WebTrader, we'll have the user interface. And then we will have the AS2 submission capability, but we are also going to have modernized API submissions as well. So that's an option for companies to be able to submit via the API. So those are the 3 submission types that we will be offering in ESG NextGen. So I have a slide with our roadmap, but I can cover that. Currently we are in Q3 of FY24, and we are gearing up for our user acceptance testing. Our user acceptance testing will take place between Q3 and Q4 of FY24. And then our planned implementation date for release 1 is between FY24 Q4 and FY25 Q1. And then we are planning release 2, which will include the large file submissions, which will take place in 2025. Yeah, next one. So this, yep. All right. So that was our roadmap that I covered. So challenge question. How many different submission methods are available in ESG NextGen? A, 5, B, 3, C, 2, D, 4. I'll give you a second to think about that. All right, and if you selected 3, you are correct. You'll have the capability of submitting through the Unified Submission Portal. We'll have the AS2 submission capability as well as API submission capability. So our release high-level timeline, so this is for release 1. We are in FY24 Q3, so we are preparing for our user acceptance testing right now. We will kick off our user acceptance testing towards the end of FY24 Q3. That will span into FY24 Q4. And then our plan go live is between FY24 Q4 and FY25 Q1. So we are at another challenge question. When is the planned go live date for ESG NextGen? A, 2026, B, FY25 Q3, C, FY24 Q4 to FY25 Q1, or D, none of the above. I'll give you a second to think about that. All right, if you selected C, you are correct. Our planned go live is between FY24 Q4 and FY25 Q1. So our ESG NextGen industry testing phases. So as I mentioned, we are planning to move into our UAT testing. So we will have 2 waves of our UAT testing. The first wave will include the Unified Submission Portal. This will include new registration and management. And then we will also have testing of the API submission capability. In wave 2, we'll test submissions via AS2. We'll test migrating the ESG user accounts. And then we will have additional testing for wave 1 improvements that we made based on any feedback we received during wave 1 testing. So both centers and industry will engage in testing at the same time. It is a coordinated effort. We've had several industry demos over the last 8 or 9 months. During those industry demos, we did ask for industry testing volunteers. We have over 175 volunteers that will be participating in our UAT testing, as well as our centers. industry engagement and collaboration. So as I mentioned, we've done a lot of collaboration with industry as well as within the FDA with the centers. As part of that, we took into consideration feedback from industry as well as the center. So our goal was to minimize the impact to centers and industry as much as possible. So for current WebTrader users, you will use our unified submission portal when we modernize to ESG NextGen. So what will change for you? You'll have a modernized UI, so it should improve your user experience significantly. It'll make submissions much easier. You'll be able to upload files, manage users, and then access submission history. So to minimize any risk, as well as to make the process as seamless as possible, we are going to migrate current user accounts from ESG to ESG NextGen. We are going to perform, obviously, user acceptance testing. We'll have detailed training sessions. Any current registered ESG user will be starting a campaign in the next couple of months. We'll be sending out weekly notifications to say, hey, we're modernizing. This is how it's going to impact you. This is when we're going live. And then we'll have detailed user guides available as well. So we really want to make this as seamless as possible for industry, provide as much support as possible, and make it as easy for you to transition. For our current AS2 users, there will be minimal changes. The DNS and certificates will remain the same. The callback password will need to be resubmitted to the FDA, and the IP address will change to point to ESG NextGen. So we will perform user acceptance testing for AS2 users. We will migrate current AS2 accounts, and then again, we'll provide training sessions and user guides as well for our AS2 users. For API users, so when we go live, we will not have any, we'll not be migrating any AS2 users to API, but after we go live, anyone that does want to migrate to use API, we'll work with you to do that. We will be testing this functionality though during our UAT testing. And then our customer support, so ESG, as most of you know, has help desk support available. That same help desk support will be available for NextGen, so that will not change for you. So we are at challenge question number 5. How many UAT waves are there? A, 3, B, none, C, 2, D, 1. I'll give you a second to think about that. The answer is 2. So if you guessed 2, you got it right. We'll have 2 waves of UAT testing. The first one will be for our unified submission portal as well as API. Wave 2 will include AS2 users. So our ESG NextGen rollout plan. So like I mentioned, we'll have a campaign where we start sending out weekly emails to our current registered ESG users to notify them of what's coming. About 2 months before the rollout, we'll provide the specific rollout date and let you know how that will impact you, what the downtime will be. And then we'll explain what will take place during the rollout. Everyone will move to ESG NextGen. We will be retiring legacy ESG when we migrate to ESG NextGen. We will maintain legacy ESG in the event we got into production and had any major issues, which obviously we don't foresee given the extensive testing that we'll do prior to that. But if we did have an issue, we'd always have the ability to cut back over to legacy ESG. And then once we get into ESG NextGen, of course, we'll have the user guides and support available. So FD engagement. So we have a number of ways that we've been engaging with industry and centers to make them aware of what's to come. So if you are currently have our ESG FDA webpage bookmarked. You can access information about ESG NextGen by clicking on the ESG NextGen what's new for ESG NextGen on the electronic submission gateway page. We also have an FDA ESG NextGen website that provides information for you on what's coming, and we update that regularly with information. We provide, we have industry demos on there for you to view. It has our roadmap, so lots of useful information. If you have questions, you can also reach us at esgngsupport@fda.hhs.gov. We have a team of people that monitor that email inbox regularly. So if you send us a question, we will be happy to respond to you. So I mentioned that, we've been working with FDA centers as well as industry, as well as our international partners, Health Canada. So just to give you a little bit of information, statistics on our engagements, we've had 37 engagements with the centers over the past 8 months to discuss ESG NextGen and get their feedback. During the engagements, we've had over 520 participants, and we have responded to over 150 questions. For industry engagements, we've had 12 different engagements with industry to provide them demos, get their feedback, and engage with industry. And during those industry engagements, we've had over 2,000 participants with over 500 questions. We've received over 175 industry UAT volunteers. When we do send out communication to centers, there's over 100 recipients between the FDA centers. And then when we send out communication to industry, our list of recipients is over 12,000. So we are definitely engaging with industry and the centers. This is a collaborative effort. We greatly appreciate all of the feedback from all of our industry partners. It's been very educating for us, and it's imperative to the success of ESG NextGen. So we look forward to the continued partnership with industry. So we are at our next challenge question. Will ESG NextGen replace the current ESG? A, yes, legacy ESG will retire when ESG NextGen goes live. B, no, only certain submission types will use ESG NextGen. C, it will be industry's choice to use ESG NextGen. D, using ESG NextGen will depend on the center receiving the submission. I'll give you a second to think about that. If you selected A, yes, ESG will be retired when ESG NextGen goes live. You're correct. So we are going to be retiring legacy ESG, and everyone will be migrated to ESG NextGen all at once. All right, so we have a special sneak peek demo for you of ESG NextGen.
We will step through registration before we can begin creating packages for our company. Searching for my company, it looks like we found a match. My company has already been registered. No additional input is needed from me. When an existing company is selected, the system will check for company-wide non-repudiation letters. And it looks like my company already has a letter on file. So I can skip past uploading a non-repudiation letter today. As you can see, the registration process changes to fit the user's needs. Past the initial company registration, this form can be simplified for many users. Now I just need to select a role, review my details, and submit. I'm registering as a submitter today. Reviewing my entered details, everything looks as expected, and I'm ready to submit. We are brought to a confirmation message, just as the agent Aaliyah saw earlier. Again, I will await review to gain full access to the Unified Submission Portal. Let's actually log back in as our agent to see if her account has been reviewed yet. Upon logging in, I can see the full Unified Submission Portal in place of the message we saw previously. While we registered Sean, an ESG admin approved Aaliyah's account. And now that I am approved, I can create submission packages. Because I'm an agent, I will first select the company I will submit for. As you can see here, each company we uploaded an authorization letter for during ALEA's registration is displayed here. Non-agents will not see this step. Instead, they will be taken directly to file upload. And using the instructions here, I can ensure that I am attaching and uploading the relevant files correctly. Folder structure is maintained through upload, so I can easily select this pre-structured folder here. Because file upload occurs in parallel, I can upload my files and continue through the form without being delayed by lengthy upload times. Lastly, I will enter my package details. I will select a center and a type, as well as provide my name and additional notes. I'm utilizing our simple e-signature functionality to quickly provide my acknowledgement that this package is complete. After submitting, I am shown confirmation of my submission. And finally, acknowledgement emails complete our process. I can view the acknowledgements in my inbox, as seen here. All acknowledgements will be sent to the submitter via email. For AS2 submissions, acknowledgements will be sent back via AS2. For API submissions, submitters can utilize our API to electronically retrieve their acknowledgements. At this time, only the submitter will receive the email. However, ESG NG users will be able to view acknowledgements for submissions through the Unified Submission Portal on the submission history. Back on my dashboard, I can see a quick glimpse of all submissions created in the past 30 days through the status tracker. I can navigate through submission history to view and filter submission data. On this view, submitters can see all of their created submissions. Power users can see all submissions created for their company, and agents, like myself, can see all submissions created for each of the companies they represent. These filters will help me to refine this list of submissions as necessary. I can search on name or core ID. I can also filter by FDA center, submission type, submission status, and creation date. As an agent, I can filter on the company the submission was created for. This filter and the company column are hidden for non-agents. When I am ready to apply my filters, I'll click Search. And if I'd like to reset my filters to their default, I'll click Reset. The grid is filtered by creation date to show recent submissions higher in the list. But I can sort on any of these fields in ascending or descending order as I see fit. All submissions, including API and AS2 submissions, can be seen here. If I need to grab a snapshot of this grid, I will click Export to Excel. An Excel file will be generated for me, and upon clicking Download, the file will be saved to my computer. Any applied filters at the time of generation will be reflected in this file. To view additional details, I will click on the submission core ID. Name, file count, and creation details are highlighted here. On status history, I can see the acknowledgements sent for this submission. We took a glimpse at the emails received earlier. Now we can view that same acknowledgement information neatly organized in our Unified Submission Portal. A list of acknowledgements is displayed along with file status and receipt date. I can view and download acknowledgement attachments. You've probably also noticed this bar to the left. This is our navigational bar. This bar displays everywhere necessary in our system. Users can collapse and expand this bar as needed. I can utilize this feature to jump around the Unified Submission Portal with ease. I can also take actions from this bar, such as creating a new submission or managing my API credentials. Invisibility applies here just as it does on the dashboard. For instance, only power users, like myself, can see the API management action here.
Great. So that was our sneak peek of the ESG NextGen Unified Submission Portal. So I hope you all think it's a big improvement from WebTrader. As you can see, it's very user-friendly, easy to use. So I hope it kind of gets you excited of what's to come in the next couple months. So key takeaways. So ESG NextGen is the modernization of the current electronic submission gateway. It has been a collaborative effort with FDA Information Technology, our FDA centers, our international partner Health Canada, as well as industry. ESG NextGen will be a modern cloud-based solution that will improve user experience. It'll increase usability and scalability, and it'll implement an identity and access management solution, which will improve cybersecurity. The planned go live for ESG NextGen is between Q4 of FY24 and Q1 of FY25. And release 1 and 2 will fulfill our industry commitments, align with the FDA strategic direction by creating enterprise services, and will further the FDA's vision of one FDA. If you have any questions, this is my FDA email, jessica.bernhardt@fda.hhs.gov. You can also reach out to the ESG NextGen team at esgng@helpdesk@fda.gov. I'm sorry, support@fda.gov. And then we also have the website that's available with some useful information. So this brings us to the end of our presentation. I hope you all enjoyed learning about ESG NextGen and you're excited for what's to come. So thank you.
Thank you for that great presentation. You two can have a seat over here, and we will start with our questions. Feel free to line up at the mics if you have any questions.
Excuse me. So will I be able to use Apple with this? Because I know I couldn't use it with the web trader. Will that be a change? Because
Yes. So I'm excited to share that you can use Apple, you can use any kind of iOS.
awesome. Thank you. That's huge.
Sure.
Okay, any online questions?
Is there a fee for an institution to create an ESG account? How many users can access the account?
So unlimited amount of users can access the account. And there's no fee to create a user account.
Thank you. Can you expand on the two-way communication for ESG NextGen capability? Does it mean we can receive dossier questions through the ESG?
So two-way communication is a future enhancement. So I can't really give any information on what that enhancement will look like, but it is a planned future enhancement.
Thank you. When will WebTrader be discontinued? Can we transition now?
Unfortunately, no, you can't transition until ESG NextGen goes live, which is between FY24 Q4 and FY25 Q1. Once we implement ESG NextGen, WebTrader will be retired and everyone will submit via the unified submission portal.
On top of that is we're going to do a one-time migration of all the user accounts currently in the WebTrader over to the new ESG. So you are receiving welcome emails for you to continue. There's some we're implementing multi-factor authentication so that you are receiving an email, and so and then you can log in and then provide additional information of that to finish the multi-factor authentication sign-up process. But all the existing accounts will be migrated over.
Are there any other questions from inside the room? Okay, any more online questions?
Our university currently has a single ESG account. Do you recommend each relevant faculty member have their own ESG account?
We recommend that anyone that will be submitting should have their own submission account.
Okay. Right, thank you for that response. And related to that, if there are several submitters in one company, can they all see the submissions made within their company?
So there will be different roles within the ESG NextGen portal. So there will be a power user as well as a regular submitter. Power users can see all submissions and regular submitters will only be able to see their submissions.
Are there additional questions?
Okay. I have a question from online. How will ESG NextGen affect CDER Direct, if anything?
ESG NextGen is separate from CDER Direct.
Can continue with online questions.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. Can SPL be submitted through ESG NextGen?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Can SPLs, I guess that stands for Structured Product Labeling, be submitted through ESG NextGen?
Yes, any of the current submissions available in Legacy ESG will be available in ESG NextGen.
And is there a limited amount of power users within the company?
We don't have a limit on power users. We recommend more than one power user though. So that way, if a power user leaves, you have another power user.
Thank you.
So the
question
first,
related-
I just add to that, the first power user will be approved by the ESG admin team. And then once the first power user established, then that power user can promote other users to power user role as well. So we don't have a limitation of how many power users for a company.
Thank you for that. Related to that or a different approach, can you use a group email address for individuals who set up an ESG NextGen account so that if an employee leaves the company, the information won't be lost? Or do you recommend the different accounts still?
You can use a group email address. We recommend not doing that though for security reasons. We'll have multi-factor authentication in ESG NextGen. So for security reasons, we recommend not doing that.
Okay, and how much time will we have to make the transition once it goes live?
Everyone will be converted to ESG NextGen at once. We will migrate all of the user accounts. Once we get past our user acceptance testing, we'll be sending out regular campaign of emails to notify you of when the cutover to ESG NextGen is, what the impact will be to users, any downtime, and everyone will be migrated to ESG NextGen at once, and we will at that time retire legacy ESG.
Thank you. One more question from online. How is Health Canada included in the use of ESG NextGen?
Health Canada currently receives submissions through Legacy ESG, and they will continue to receive submissions through ESG NextGen. We have been working regularly with our Health Canada partner on ESG NextGen. They will be involved in our user acceptance testing, and we have Health Canada submitters involved in our user acceptance testing as well.
Are we done with the online questions? Are there, okay. Are there additional online questions?
Oh, we still have a few more coming in, yes.
Okay.
Does that mean that only the power user will be acknowledged by FDA and submissions only by power users?
No, a power user will be approved by the FDA admin just because there's not a power user that currently exists. Anyone can submit through the submission portal. And then once you have one power user established for your company, you'll have the ability to approve additional power users. And then you can also have submitters as well.
Okay. And how do we request for that power user account in the ESG portal?
There will be a process. We'll provide training on how that process will work. But when you log in, you'll establish yourself as a power user. The FDA admin will approve the initial power user. And then from there, you can assign additional power users for that role. But we will provide information leading up to the ESG NextGen Go Live. We'll have demos available. We'll have training sessions. So we'll cover all of that during the training session with specific information.
Thank you. One other online question. Do we still need to use an ECTD vendor?
Can you repeat the question one more time? ECTD what?
Do we still need to use an ECTD vendor?
Oh, we do not plan to replace ECTD software. So whatever the current, what the ESG can accept, or what formats can accept, will be, pretty much captured by ESG. So we don't change that process at all.
Yeah. Question, should ESG NextGen be the priority submission system for CDER and CBER, or should we use both ESG NextGen and CDER NextGen, or just ESG NextGen for non-ECT submissions?
So ESG NextGen is the official FDA submission gateway. However, there are other submission gateways available depending upon your submission type. So as you heard during the CDER NextGen discussion, you can use either one to submit.
I think we're just about out of time. So please join me in thanking our speakers.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So we will now hear from Dr. Chi Liu, who will be speaking to us about artificial intelligence and machine learning, the landscape analysis of the AI ML related regulatory submissions at CDER, and challenges and regulatory considerations of the applications of AI and ML in drug development. Dr. Liu is Associate Director for Innovation and Partnership in the Office of Clinical Pharmacology, or OCP, within CDER's Office of Translational Sciences. Let's now turn our attention over to Dr. Liu.
Thank you, Reno, and good morning, everyone. It's my great pleasure to be here today and to talk about one of my favorite topics, artificial intelligence and machine learning. In my mind, this represents a very exciting new frontier in drug development and regulation. Let's kick things off with a discussion on why do we need to talk about AI and machine learning in drug development today. This is because the application of AI and machine learning in drug development is expanding very rapidly in recent years. And they can be very powerful tools that has the great potential to improve both the efficiency and probability of success of drug development. And it can also be used to advance precision medicine. However, with great power come with great responsibilities and unique challenges. So I think it will be very helpful if all of us can have some understanding of what they are, what they can do, where they can add value, and what we need to consider when using them. So here are the learning objectives of this session. By the end of this talk, I hope everyone will have an understanding of the background knowledge of AI and machine learning and understand the landscape of the AI machine learning related regulatory submissions for drug development at CDER FDA. And I also hope you have some appreciation of the challenges associated with the application of AI and machine learning, and also the regulatory considerations for the use of AI ML in drug development. Lastly, I also hope you get to know some of the AI ML related activities in my office, which is the Office of Clinical Pharmacology. So one of the main focus for our office is on precision, it's centered around precision medicine, which means to find the right drug and the right dose at the right time for each patient. And another focus of our office is to try to use innovative tools such as modeling simulation to facilitate drug development. And we believe AI and machine learning can have great potential in these areas. So let's start with some definitions. So what exactly is artificial intelligence? AI is a very expensive field, and this term was coined by John McCarthy in 1955 as the science and engineering of making intelligent machines. And HHS has further defined this as the development of computer systems that can perform tasks which normally require human intelligence. Machine learning is a subfield of artificial intelligence, and in fact, nowadays in drug development, most of the AI applications are in fact machine learning applications. And a computer is said to be learning from experience with respect to some class of task if the performance of this task is improved with experience. And if you think about experience as data, this definition simply means the performance of the algorithm will improve when trained with more data. And in fact, machine learning has a lot of overlap with statistical learning and pharmacometric modeling. And within the machine learning field, there are many different algorithms. And one of the most popular algorithm is called artificial intelligence. And many of the recent AI breakthroughs are in fact powered by this algorithm. And the artificial neural network is a mathematical model that is inspired under the inspiration of the network of neurons that make up our brains. And it uses layers of mathematical units, the so-called neurons, to analyze the data. Today, I'm going to introduce 3 common types of neural networks that has been very important for modern AI. I will start with convolutional neural network. And this kind of neural network is very powerful in medical imaging analysis. In fact, many people says the era of modern AI started in 2012 when a convolutional neural network called ANNEXLET significantly outperformed other algorithms in the famous ImageNet competition. And nowadays, CNN has become very popular in imaging-related tasks. And FDA's Center for Drug Evaluation, FDA's CDRH has approved many software as medical devices that are powered by CNNs. And another common type of neural network is called recurrent neural network. It's very good at analyzing sequential data, such as natural languaging. And this type of network in medical field can be used to analyze sequential data, such as pharmacokinetic and pharmacodynamic data. Another breakthrough in the modern AI is the introduction of transformer neural network. In 2017, researchers at Google published a landmark paper called "Attention is All You Need," which introduced the transformer neural network. And this type of neural network is very powerful. And initially, it was used for language translation. And unlike RNN, which analyze the data sequentially, transformer neural network has an inherent advantage of being able to process various parts of the input data in parallel rather than sequentially, therefore allowing for more efficient training and unparalleled model performance. And transformer neural network has led to a lot of breakthroughs in natural language processing, for example, led to the birth of the so-called large language models. In 2022, OpenAI unveiled ChatGPT, where GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformers. And this has become a cultural phenomenon. Chances are you have either interacted with it directly or have heard discussion about its capabilities. And the technology breakthroughs like this will keep transforming our lives in ways that were previously unimaginable. In the drug development domain, the AI and machine learning can be very powerful too. They can be used to aggregate data, synthesize information, identify patterns, and optimize decision-making. They can be used in drug discovery, drug development, and patient care. For example, they can be used to help us understand the disease and targets and come up with like new compound screening or combination selection. And in the drug development phase, they can be used to help with clinical trial design and clinical trial conduct. And also they can be used to help precision medicine by help improve disease diagnosis, treatment selection, and monitoring. And also they can be used to facilitate drug manufacturing and post-marketing surveillance. In 2022, my colleagues and I published a paper on a landscape analysis for the AI and machine learning related submissions at CDER FDA. And today I'm going to show you an updated analysis which included submission data in year 2022. And from this slide, you can see before 2018, the regulatory submissions with AI machine learning components in CDER was very few. And then between 2018 to 2020, we can see like a 2 to 3-fold increase yearly. And then in 2021, we see a very sharp increase in this type of submissions. The number jumped to 132, which is about 10-fold compared to the year before. And then in 2022, we have identified 175 such submissions. And we think this upward trend is consistent with the overall increasing use of AI and machine learning in the biomedical field. And this trend is likely to continue given the increasing investment in this area in the pharma industry. We have also summarized the AI machine learning submissions by development stage. From the figure on the left, you can see AI and machine learning has been used throughout the drug development lifecycle, including drug discovery, non-clinical development, clinical development, and post-marketing. And based on the submissions, we see most of the applications happen at the clinical development stage. However, we need to keep in mind the cases for drug discovery we see will probably only represent a very small percentage of its actual use in drug discovery because generally speaking, FDA does not regulate drug discovery, so the sponsor don't have to tell us if they use AI in drug discovery. And on the right of the slide, you can see the distribution of those applications across different therapeutic areas. And you can see they have been used in many different therapeutic areas, while oncology, psychiatry, gastroenterology, and neurology has the highest number of such submissions. We have also summarized the type of analysis for the AI models that have been proposed to use for outcome prediction, covariate selection, confounding adjustment, pharmacometric modeling, anomaly detection, the analysis of imaging, video, or voice data, and they have also been proposed for real-world data phenotyping and natural language processing. I've also summarized the objectives of the AI machine learning application. As we talked earlier, that have been used for drug discovery and drug repurposing. And we see applications where AI and machine learning has been used for drug toxicity prediction. And we have also seen many applications that AI and machine learning were used for enrichment trial design. Generally speaking, enrichment trial design has three strategies: reduced variability, prognostic enrichment, and predictive enrichment. And we have seen AI and machine learning being proposed for all three kind of enrichment strategies. And we have also seen AI and machine learning being proposed for patient risk stratification and management. They have also been proposed to use for dose selection and dose optimization. AI systems has been proposed to use for monitoring and sometimes even enhancement of adherence to dosing regimens in clinical trials. They have also been proposed for synthetic control, digital twin generation, and they have also been proposed for endpoint and biomarker assessment and post-marketing surveillance. Now I'm going to talk briefly about regulatory considerations for AI and machine learning in drug development. A little bit disclaimer, these are my personal opinion and it's still evolving. So when we develop or evaluate or implement AI models, we always need to clearly define the context of use. And the model selection and development will need to be fit for purpose, depends on the context of use. And we've been using a risk-based credibility assessment framework. And in this framework, the model risk is determined by two factors: model influence and decision consequence. Model influence here means the influence of the model on the decision-making, which means will you have other data to help support this decision in addition to the AI model? And what are the weights when you compare the different data or information to support the decision? And the decision consequence means the consequences of an incorrect decision, and an increase in either the decision consequence or model influence will increase the model risk. And we will use this model risk to guide the selection of activities for the model evaluation, the acceptance criteria, and the documentation needed. The model transparency is also very important. The black box nature of some of the AI machine learning algorithms can sometimes discourage people's willingness to use those models. And we encourage the sponsors to develop and implement methods that can increase the model's interpretability and explainability. And we also encourage the sponsors to develop and implement best practice for AI and machine learning, such as how to split the data for model development, hyperparameter training, and model evaluation. Now I'm going to share 2 review examples where the sponsor proposed to use AI and machine learning in drug development. In the first example, machine learning was proposed for patient risk stratification and management. Drug A is under development for a life-threatening disease. In the previous trials of drug A, all patients went through inpatient monitoring after dosing due to the concern of a potentially life-threatening drug-related adverse event. The sponsor proposed to use a machine learning model to predict the patient's risk for this adverse event based on baseline characteristics and lab values. If a patient is predicted to be of low risk, then the patient will have outpatient monitoring instead of inpatient monitoring. And initially, the sponsor was not very clear on some components of the context of use. For example, will this patient stratification strategy used in clinical trial only, or will it be used in both the clinical trials and real-world applications? And we sent them relevant comments seeking clarification. The sponsor also mentioned that this model could also be used for dosing regimen optimization. If so, it will need a different model risk analysis. And here's FDA's model risk analysis for this review case. Here we rank the model influence to be high because the model prediction will be the sole factor to determine whether a patient will go through inpatient or outpatient monitoring after dosing. And we ranked the decision consequences to be high because the model prediction will determine whether a patient will go through inpatient or outpatient monitoring after dosing. And if the model erroneously predicts a low-risk patient to be of high risk, it may not be of major concern as this patient will go through inpatient monitoring even though it may not be necessary. However, on the other hand, if the model erroneously predicts a high-risk patient to be of low risk, then that will be a major concern as the patient will not have the necessary inpatient monitoring for the potentially life-threatening adverse events. And we find that the model risk analysis can be particularly helpful to help us to find what will be the important model performance matrix. For example, in this case, we find the negative predictive value and the model sensitivity will be the major performance matrix to determine the acceptance of the model from a regulatory perspective. Now let's move to the second example. In this example, the sponsor proposed to use AI-generated digital twins and prognostic covariate adjustment to reduce the variance for the treatment effect estimates and to reduce the sample size for the placebo group. According to the sponsor, a generative deep learning-based prognostic model has been developed to produce digital twins, which are probabilistic representations of potential placebo outcome for a specific clinical trial participant, giving his or her baseline characteristics. Again, let's look at the context of use first. Here, the sponsor proposed to use AI-generated digital twins and covariate adjustment procedure to reduce the variance of the treatment effect estimates for a drug, we call it drug B, and to enable the reduction of the placebo sample size in the proposed phase 2 and phase 3 randomized controlled clinical trials with continuous endpoints. Here is the FDA's model risk analysis for this application. Here we rank the model influence to be high because the model prediction will be the sole factor to determine the patient prognostic score based on the baseline variables. But here, for the decision consequences, we rank it to be low for both its application in phase 2 and phase 3 trials. And of course, the risk for the phase 2 trial is even lower compared to its application in the phase 3 trial. This is because the covariate adjustment procedures possess several desirable statistical properties, such as minimum impact on bias or type 1 error when used in randomized controlled trials with continuous endpoints. And this is what really matters from regulatory perspective. And actually, this is consistent with the spirit in the FDA guidance for adjusting covariates in randomized controlled trials. And here is a summary of FDA's feedback and questions to the sponsors related to the AI machine learning part. We have no objection if this proposal will be implemented in a phase 2 trial as exploratory analysis as the sponsor suggested. And the use of this approach as a primary analysis in the phase 3 trial may also be acceptable, but the devils are in the details. So we asked the sponsor to provide details for the phase 3 trials, including data analysis plans. And we asked the sponsor, is the training data set for the prognostic model representative of the population the sponsor plans to enroll? And also, since generative AI will be used for prognostic score generation, we asked the sponsor to ensure that the same patient retains the same values if the procedure is repeated multiple times. And we also suggest the sponsor to use explainable AI techniques to identify key contributing features for the prognostic scores. Now, the previous two examples are cases where the sponsor proposed to use machine learning in drug development. And now I'm going to also share with you another example where FDA has used machine learning to help with regulatory decision-making. In 2022, FDA issued emergency use authorization for anakinra for the treatment of COVID-19 in hospitalized adult patients. And in this case, we use machine learning to help identify the suitable population for the anakinra treatment under the EUA. In this EUA application, the efficacy and safety data to support the EUA mainly come from one single phase 3 trials called Save More. And in Save More trial, patients were selected based on a biomarker called SUPA, which is a biomarker for inflammation and immune status. And all patients who enrolled into this trial are required to have a SUPA level higher than or equal to 6 nanogram per ml. However, the SUPA test is currently not commercially available in the United States. And this posed a very big regulatory challenge because if we issue this EUA, how can the healthcare providers identify the suitable patient population for this treatment? In order to ensure patients will get access to this potentially life-saving treatment in a timely manner, FDA decided to use an innovative approach to try to find an alternative way to identify patients who are allied with the patients enrolled in the Save More trial, which are have SUPA level higher than or equal to 6. And we decided to use machine learning to address this challenge. We used two different machine learning algorithms. One is based on neural networks, another one's based on IntelliSelect, to try to identify a way, actually it's a combination of various patient characteristics and commonly measured lab values to identify patients who are likely to have SUPA level higher than or equal to 6 nanogram per ml. And we use the data from the Save More trial to develop this patient identification method, which is a scoring rule system I will tell you about later. And we use data from a separate trial called SAVE to validate the scoring system. Here on the left side of the slide, it's the scoring system that is developed based on the machine learning methods. It's essentially a checklist based on 8 different criteria. And if a patient can meet at least 3 out of the 8 criteria, then we think this patient is very likely to have suPAR level higher than or equal to 6 nanogram per ml, therefore be a suitable patient for the anakinra treatment. And this scoring rule system ultimately was incorporated into the anakinra emergency use authorization fact sheet in section 1.1 patient population identification section. And this is the first time FDA used machine learning to determine a suitable patient population for drug therapy. As we talked earlier, AI and machine learning can be very powerful tools that can impact our lives positively, but they also come with unique challenges. From a technical perspective, there are challenges such as bias, generalizability, opacity, privacy, and security. And if those issues are not addressed appropriately, they can lead to disparity and fairness issues and trustworthiness issues. Last year, FDA released a discussion paper on the use of AI and machine learning in the development of drug and biological products. And the intention of this discussion paper is to spur a discussion for interested parties, and it's also included a call for engagement and collaboration. And as you have probably heard from Dr. Tala Fakari's talk yesterday, FDA is also planning to release a guidance for industry that will be focusing on the use of AI and machine learning for regulatory decision makings for drug development, which will talk about the risk-based credibility framework that I mentioned earlier. And we look forward to your feedback. Now I'd like to switch gears and talk about some of the AI machine learning activities in Office of Clinical Pharmacology, Office of Translational Sciences at CDER FDA. In 2019, our office launched an innovative data analytics program, which is a forward-thinking program intended to increase our capability related to AI, machine learning, digital health technology, real-world evidence, and other emerging data sciences, and in order to support the advancement in drug development and regulation. And this program has 4 interconnected and synergistic components: education, research, collaboration, and fellowship. And in 2021, when we noticed the surge of regulatory submissions with AI and machine learning components, our office formally established a machine learning review team. And currently, our review mostly focusing on the use of AI and machine learning for precision medicine and clinical trial design. I would also like to briefly mention about AI and machine learning research in our office. We have conducted landscape analysis, methodological explorations, and we also try to apply the technologies for therapeutic optimization and individualization. And I have included some reference articles in case you're interested to know more detail. In March this year, CDER has established a new Center of Excellence called Quantitative Medicine Center of Excellence. And here, the quantitative medicine refers to the exposure-based biological and statistical models that leverage data from various sources, such clinical data, non-clinical data, and real-world data sources to facilitate drug development, regulatory decision-making, and patient care. And under the QMCOE, one of the major focus is machine learning and artificial intelligence, especially their usage to support model-informed drug development. Here are the take-home messages of my presentation today. AI and machine learning can play an increasingly impactful role in drug development. They can improve both the efficiency and probability of success of drug development, and they can help to advance precision medicine. Both opportunities and challenges lay ahead, and more education, research, and collaborations are needed to move the field forward. And I hope many of you will join us in this endeavor to push what's possible. And now I have 2 challenge questions. The first one is a multiple choice question. How can AI enhance drug development? A, by improving the probability of success of drug development. B, by improving the efficiency of drug development. C, by advancing precision medicine to tailor treatment to individuals. D, all the above. And the correct answer is D, all the above. If you achieve that one, then our mission for this session has been achieved. Now this is the second challenge question, true or false. Machine learning is considered a subset of AI. And answer is, this is correct. Last but not least, I would like to thank my colleagues who have contributed to the work that has been presented here, and I want to thank you all for your attention. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Liu. We now have about 10 minutes for questions before our lunch break. Would you like to sit down or stay? You can stand if you'd like. That's
Oh,
fine.
I don't have the mic.
Oh, right.
with me, so-
Okay.
Thank
Any
you.
questions from inside the room? Nothing? Think about it. Nora?
Do you expect that AI could be used to enhance or even replace clinical trial data monitoring, committee safety data review? And do you anticipate that the 2006 FDA guidance will be updated to include AI contribution?
That's a great question. In my personal opinion, I think it's going to be very hard for AI to replace humans, especially when there are like responsibility and liabilities involved, right? On the other hand, I think AI can be great tools that can be leveraged for various tasks, including clinical monitoring. And I think in the future, it's likely to be a combination of AIs and human experts working together to help with clinical trial safety monitoring.
Question from in the room?
Yes, thank you for your presentation, Dr. Liu. It was very, very involved and very detailed. I appreciate that. So you were saying that from an OCP perspective, you guys would be inclined to say accepting something in a phase 3 based upon phase 2, as long as things were equal, right? Thinking purely from a compliance perspective in terms of if I'm auditing my team's work, there's nothing nefarious. They just made a mistake. How would we ensure that there was no, they use apples versus apples? Because we're talking about generative. So if they, in the phase 2, they kept it, as they moved to phase 3, they actually changed a way they scored or leveled. How would we detect that? Is it a validation? How would we say, I'm auditing that or trying to make sure prior to our submission to the FDA? How would we ensure that?
May I ask a clarification? So are you referring to use AI for auditing, or are you talking about auditing like AI generated data?
Auditing the latter part, the latter.
Okay, that's a good question. I think there are ways that we can audit the data, no matter it's generated by AI or human. I think in auditing, I think a lot of the things in the end are gonna be like responsibility and legal considerations, right? Because AI will be able to generate data or text, but AI cannot be the responsible party. So in the end, anything in the report will have a human expert that signs the report, and that person that signs the report will be the person responsible to ensure the accuracy of the text, no matter it was initially generated by AI or by human. So therefore, I think the burden probably will lie on the sponsor to ensure if you use AI in generating like text or reports in your operations, you will need to make sure things are correct.
I reckon I agree. So if we can't assume that their data plan is going to be completely adhered to, like I said, there's nothing nefarious. It's just an accident or error or misperception in terms of application. How do we ensure? How do we assess? Is there something that you would recommend that say because we want to give you a quality product to make
Mhm.
the submission so that there's nothing that stands out that delays our application or anything that we could have detected in-house.
That's a great question. First, I want to clarify, like FDA does not regulate everything. There are certain tasks that it's the sponsor's responsibility and risk. And some of the other things, for example, it will impact the safety efficacy or quality of the drug. And then FDA will need to review that. We don't review everything, but there are some general principles that can be leveraged by anyone who work with AI for any context. I think for whatever task you want to use AI for, you want to make sure the model performance is good and it's fit for purpose. And in terms of model evaluation, there are many different ways to do the evaluation. Like sometimes for some of the models, you could evaluate like the model, the coding and things. And another way is to look at the model performance. And for that, you probably need to create some realistic and representative scenarios and making sure that your AI model can perform well under various conditions. Because very often we see like AI model might be working well with one scenario, then it will not work well with another scenario. And it might be important to also to include some of the techniques that will continue to monitor the performance of the AI model, because like you probably heard about data drifting and the model performance will change, right? That's important for you to include like techniques and procedures to ensure your AI model will always perform as expected under various conditions at various times.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next question.
That was excellent talk. You said a perfect segue for my question about what talking about the model performance. I was just curious because the accuracy and explainability are inversely correlated. How FDA takes that into account when doing models, risk analysis, and making ethical considerations?
Sorry, I didn't hear that part very clear. You said two things are closely correlated. Can you say?
Model accuracy and the explainability. Right. So I was wondering how FDA takes that into account.
That's an excellent
when
question.
making, models risk analysis and making ethical considerations.
That's a great question. It's been like a big challenge for the entire AI field for a long time, how to balance explainability versus model performance. Generally speaking, when your AI model gets more and more complicated, and then explainability goes down while the performance goes up. So you need to find a sweet spot for your context of use. But I think the science is also evolving. There are ways that we could develop AI algorithms that has good performance while have good explainability. For example, I want to share like the AI technology we use for the anakinra case. Actually, the neural network architecture was something developed by some very talented data scientists in our team. They developed a neural network, actually can generate a scoring rule system or checklist as an end product. So while this algorithm can still achieve really good model performance as compared to the other like AI machine learning algorithms, the final product, the checklist or the scoring rule, it's very easy to understand and explain, right? And that biological plausibility also helped for physicians to feel comfortable using them. So I think science is evolving. We're doing better and better in this area. Thank you for the great question.
Hi, I'm Dave Jaworski. In my work, we're finding that a lot of times when you start with one set of data, everything looks really good with your model. But then as you gather new data coming in, all of a sudden your model's changing.
Mm-hmm.
But you're not going to get the same value for like a patient that you're working with or a manufacturing process where I spend most of my time.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like everybody wants the same values to come up every time. It doesn't work when in reality. How do you look at that from a regulatory perspective? And how do we have to concentrate on our prediction intervals, trying to get them narrower, or Or how do we address that situation?
That's a great question, and also a very important issue for the field. The model is only going to be as good as the data that used to train it. And this generalizability issue for models are not unique to AI models. It's actually applied to all the other models as well, right? And one way to ensure the generalizability is when you train the model, you try to find data set that is diverse and inclusive, representative of the population that you intend to use the model. And that can help with the generalizability issue. And I think what you mentioned is especially like a very common issue, especially for some of the public academic publications. No disrespect. I think academic institutions made great contributions to the field, but very often, like the AI model were trained from data from one institution, right? And then when you use the model for another institution, it may not work because another institution may have different patient population or even different like medical practice, and like model performs well in one institute may not work well for the other. And similar things you can see when you sometimes when people develop AI algorithm like based on data from one clinical site, and it may not work with others. So it's really, really important to consider those issues at the design stage. When you think about the data, like where to look for training data and testing data, consider to have this data set like diverse, unbiased, representative.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're actually out of time for questions. Let's try to squeeze this last one in. I saw they just put some time back on the clock.
So the FDA is placing great importance on clinical trial diversity. So how is the FDA evaluating and encouraging diversity and equity in the representation of the models and data sets that sponsors are using? Thank you.
Thank you. That's a great question. This is also a really important topic to the entire FDA. We have like released a lot of guidance in this areas. Like actually over the past like decades, we have various guidance centered around this issue, encouraging the diversity, encouraging the inclusion of various populations, like older adults, like minorities, into clinical trials to make the clinical trial data representative. And I think in recent years, there's a guidance that focused on to ask the sponsor to have a diversity plan. I think I don't know, probably you read that guidance, right? So there are a lot of initiatives, and FDA even have office called Office of Minority Health and Health Equity. They're just really centered around this issue of health equity and diversity. I cannot give you a full list of the initiatives they are taking, but there's just so many things going on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Liu.